The sum of human knowledge is advancing at an exponential rate, with new discoveries being published all the time. Estimates put the total number of academic papers at around 2 million per year, publishing around 30,000 different journals, each with their own hypotheses, research, and findings. 2023 is no exception, with big leaps in nuclear fusion, increased efficiency in the recycling of lithium-ion batteries, huge steps in artificial intelligence, and a whole lot more. In March of this year, scientists even mapped the entire brain of a fruit fly larva. Now, its brain is only the size of a grain of salt, but this is still pretty impressive. With countless clickbait videos and news articles, it could be hard to sift through these thousands of findings. That's why today, we're going to go over a few of the most interesting ones that you might have missed out on otherwise. In the United States, Alzheimer's disease is the fifth leading cause of death for people over the age of 65, with more than 130,000 Americans dying from it in 2020 alone. Currently, 7 million people are living with the disease. But of course, similar statistics are reported across much of the world. The earliest symptom of Alzheimer's generally affects memory, specifically the ability to remember newly learned information. This could be difficult to notice at first because some cognitive decline is expected with an aging mind. But with Alzheimer's, the mental deterioration quickly surpasses the norm. As the disease advances, it could lead to disorientation, confusion about time and space, personality changes, severe memory loss, and even physiological problems like difficulty speaking or walking. What's terrifying is that once this process begins, there's no stopping it. Alzheimer's is fatal, and there's currently no known cure. Part of the reason that we've struggled thus far to find a cure is because we aren't even sure exactly what causes Alzheimer's in the first place. After a patient with Alzheimer's has passed away, autopsies of their brain reveal two abnormal structures, plaques and tangles. Plaques are hard deposits consisting of beta-amyloid protein fragments, which build up over time, impairing the regions of the brain where they reside. Similarly, tangles are twisting fibers of another protein called tau. But this is about as far as our knowledge has taken us. Scientists aren't certain why exactly these plaques and tangles form, how exactly they damage neural structures, and why some cells are far more susceptible to the damage than others. Over the last couple of decades, hundreds of different clinical trials using various treatments have attempted to slow or stop this process. But even the smallest scraps of success seem to elude researchers every single time. But 2023 was a big year for this field. On January 6, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration granted approval for lecanemab, a drug specifically designed to target the amyloid plaques. Pharmaceutical companies like Biogen have been working for nearly 2 years on clinical trials for the treatment, and the 2023 approval means that it is one step closer to being widely available for all those who are battling the disease. Again, this is not a cure. But the results of the clinical trials showed a slow rate of cognitive decline of 27%, a truly significant amount, earning it the status of the first fully approved drug to combat Alzheimer's disease. But that's not the end of the story. In July 2023, pharmaceutical company Eli Lilly announced the results of their own weapon against Alzheimer's, donanemab. Donanemab works in a similar way, targeting the amyloid plaques, but it seems to be even more effective. In one group, cognitive decline was slowed by nearly 50%, with patients being tested on their memory, problem-solving, personal care, and more. These two drugs, known as monoclonal antibodies, were so effective in some cases that they reduced the amyloid plaques to negligible levels, meaning that some patients still saw cognitive benefits. 6 months to a year after they stopped taking the drugs, of course, such powerful treatment doesn't come without side effects. Headaches, nausea, and other minor symptoms were common, but also were more serious ones like brain swelling and even brain bleeding. Again, it's far from a cure, but it's a massive step in the right direction. One of the most promising aspects of these new drugs is the potential for them to be used early on in intervention when someone is developing amyloid plaques but has yet to show symptoms. If these drugs turn out to be worth all the hype, it's very possible that in the coming years, the world will see its very first survivor of Alzheimer's disease. octopuses, or octopods, whichever you prefer, continue to surprise researchers with the remarkable levels of intelligence and dexterity they possess. They're able to solve complex mazes, unscrew lids to get food, and can even use tools, such as the blanket octopus, which has been known to rip a stinging tentacle off a Portuguese man-o'-war and brandish it as a weapon, since they themselves are immune to its effects. Part of the reason they're so coordinated is the fact that they actually have 9 brains, a small one in each arm and a central one which controls the whole body. Perhaps the craziest instance of octopus intelligence is the hilariously common occurrence of the slippery creature escaping its own enclosure in an aquarium, sneaking into another enclosure, and snacking on some fish, then returning to its own home before the employees arrive. But sometimes, they don't even return to their enclosure, such as Inky, an octopus living in the National Aquarium of New Zealand, who escaped his habitat in 2016, climbed down a 164-foot drain pipe, and returned himself directly to the ocean. But a new study from 2023 suggests that their levels of intelligence may be even closer to ours than we previously thought, and that, as strange as it sounds, they may even experience nightmares. This study was published by researchers who interacted with Castelo, a Brazilian reef octopus who had lived a pretty tough life before ending up in research. At some point off the coast of Florida, he had been attacked by another sea creature, resulting in him losing the majority of 2 of his arms and suffering severe damage to a third. His vibe, the encounter with the predator. But it seems that the trauma from that day never left him. After being caught by accident by a fisherman and sold to the scientists, Castelo got comfortable in his new enclosure in New York. He was smart enough to understand that he wasn't in any danger, made clear by the fact that he rested out in the open and didn't feel the need to hide when the researchers came around. But when one researcher, neuroscientist Eric Ramos, returned to the enclosure one morning, he found that the water in the tank was dark and murky, as if the octopus had seen a predator and fired off its ink cartridges to conceal an escape. Obviously, no predator made it into the tank, so the puzzled researchers set up a camera to monitor the octopus 24/7, and what they found was truly remarkable. While sleeping, Castelo would rest peacefully for a period of time before suddenly thrashing around, changing colors, and firing his ink, all behaviors we'd expect an octopus to exhibit when facing a hungry predator. Ramos said, "It was really bizarre because it looked like he was in pain. It looked like he might have been suffering for a moment, and then he just got up like nothing happened and he resumed his day as normal." A while later, the team combed through hundreds of hours of recorded footage and discovered that this had not been an isolated event 3 more times. They watched Castelo freak out before calming back down and going back to sleep. The researchers made the stunning proposition that Castelo may be experiencing nightmares, perhaps trauma-induced flashbacks of his near-death experience out in the wild that claimed 2 of his limbs. It's already been established that these creatures have sleep cycles, but the ability to dream and have nightmares is a big cognitive leap. If this is true, it holds huge implications for biology and evolution. It would potentially mean that nightmares are, for some reason, evolutionarily advantageous and thus independently evolved in multiple species. On the other hand, it may imply that nightmares are a natural byproduct of higher intelligence, and that we may expect to see similar results in other clever animals, such as dolphins, elephants, apes, and perhaps others. Unfortunately, Castelo died from a parasite just a couple of months after these observations were made, so no further studies on his potential dreams were performed, and some have suggested that his behaviors were a result of a deteriorating brain in the final stages before death. It's very difficult to verify any of this since doing a proper brain scan on an octopus is no easy feat, so future studies are definitely necessary, but it's certainly intriguing. Perhaps it's bad news for vegans, but it's got great potential for agriculture. New research in March of 2023 shows that plants may be screaming in agony when they go too long without water. Okay, they might not be screaming in the way that we think of, but biologists at Tel Aviv University have found that plants emit distinctive ultrasonic clicks when under stress. It's well above the frequency that human ears can pick up, but if we could hear it, it would supposedly sound like the popping of bubble wrap at about the same volume level as a typical conversation. The stress that